Let's talk about it now with Republican Senator from Nebraska, Ben Sasse, member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, for his reaction. Good to have you with us tonight.
Good to be here. Thanks for the invite.
You have been critical of the president when you felt it was warranted. How do you think he's doing with his court picks?
I think he's done a great job with his court picks. Actually, I think the precedent he set of this list of now 25 that he campaigned on would be a great thing to go forward in presidential politics in American life. One of the fundamental powers the president has is to nominate people who, if confirmed, will serve for a lifetime, and telling voters who you'd pick. It's a really good tradition, and the president has stuck to his list, so I applaud it.
How do you think this is going to go on the committee? Because we've heard of a number of Democrats, some sit on that committee, that are basically opposed no matter whom the president picks.
You know, last year when Gorsuch was picked, you and I were supposed to be doing our interview on the court steps of the court tonight.
It was rowdy out there at the court tonight.
Loud out there. You know, when Gorsuch was picked last year, I went over to just engage some of the protesters. I was at the White House tonight for the president's pick, and a year ago the president had me over when he selected Gorsuch. We came back, and I was headed to my office, and I thought I'll go outside and see who these protesters are. And they had all these Mad Lib signs. They had signs that were made up, and they had Sharpies to fill in the name of who the person was who was supposedly going to end the world. This isn't the apocalypse. This is a chance to teach our kids basic civics and to celebrate checks and balances. So I think what happens next is sadly going to be an attempt to bork a guy. This 30 years ago, or 31 years ago, in the summer of '87, this seat, which Kennedy's held for 30 years, was the Bork seat. And when Bork wasn't given a fair hearing and when he wasn't confirmed, he went out and wrote a book the next year called The Tempting of America, which is about the politicization of everything. We're not supposed to have judges who think of themselves as super legislators. Protesting on the steps of the Supreme Court tells you that our system is breaking down in terms of basic civics. Protest at the White House. Protest at the Congress, because those are places where people are supposed to be responsive to politics. Judges are not supposed to be responsive to politics. I think we're going to see a big attempt at borking coming next.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. And as you said, last year there were certainly protesters out there, and there was definitely opposition to Justice Gorsuch upon his name being announced that night. Tonight we saw something different. We did have a plan to have our show out there live. It got so volatile at points that we ultimately didn't feel like it would be safe to do an hour of live television out there. Where are we?
You know, I think it would be great to see people on the left who, even if they want progressive goals that I don't want from a policy standpoint, admit that the judiciary is not the way to do it. If you want to move policy to the left, as many Democrats want to do, try to persuade the American people. Don't try to do it with people who sit on a court where they don't ever have to face the voters again. In our system, we the people are supposed to have the power. And the first branch, Article 1 and Article 2, they stand for election. Article 3, judges, they wear a black robe to cloak their policy preferences, and they have lifetime appointments. They're not supposed to be politicians. And when you have this much politics around every Supreme Court nomination, it means that we have too much activism in our courts.
All right, I want to play a little bit of an ad from Demand Justice. They are specifically going after Republicans they hope they can pick off. Here's their ad.
Senator Susan Collins could be the deciding vote on Trump's pick for justice. She claims to support a woman's right to have an abortion, so why won't she rule out voting for Trump's anti-choice picks? Call Senator Collins and tell her to keep her word. Oppose Trump's list of extreme nominees.
Okay, so we have these ads. We have full-page ads specifically directed at Senator Collins. How do you think that impacts her ability to make a decision here, or does it?
You know, I think that ultimately Senator Collins will, I believe, deliberate and go through a process where she recognizes that the constitutional responsibilities put on senators to provide advice and consent to the president are about what a judge's job is. And a judge's job is not to be making social policy for America. A judge's job is to defend the Constitution, to defend the rights of individuals, and ultimately to rule on what the law says, not what they wish the law would be. And so I think we have a basic breakdown of American civics going back 4 and 5 decades now. Since the late 1960s, we haven't been teaching our kids why we have 3 branches of government, why we separate power, why they check and balance one another. And I hope that Senator Collins looks at Brett Kavanaugh's record, not what are his policy preferences, but what do we know about those 300 opinions he's written in his 12 years on the D.C. Circuit. And my guess is what we're going to find is that this is a guy who has deep reverence for a Constitution, and he doesn't want to be a legislator. If he wanted to be a legislator, he should run for office so voters can decide.
Sound like somebody who has written and spoken about this quite a great deal. If folks want to know more about civics and basic things, they can check out your writings on that. Senator Sasse, thank you for coming in tonight.
Thanks for the invite.
Stay safe. All right.